And we're live. That's right. 24 hours earlier. And this might be the beginning of a new schedule. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, for Proline Picks Tuesdays. That's right. It's Tuesday night. I think it's one of those times of years, it's one of those times of season when there's, I'm just guessing, but, and I think there were Tuesday games last week where we will have football like every day of the week. Isn't that like a thing? Because I think we had Tuesdays last week. I haven't heard anybody talk. Usually someone says it and writes about it. And then I go, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. So are we into that phase yet? You would think so with these Tuesday games. There's games going on tonight. Matter of fact, games kicking off tonight. I actually like a couple of the games tonight, but it's too late. And it's no big surprise because I like Kennesaw and James Madison. So I'm going to like those games. Texas State could give James Madison a run for their money, but James Madison has just clearly been the better team this season, and they have an excellent chance of getting, and I should say excellent. They got a good chance of getting to the playoffs as long as they win out, and then the AAC teams beat each other up. I mean, they can get some multiple losses, and all those teams in the AAC just keep beating themselves up. Maybe James Madison will get the call. It is possible because it's James Madison and the AAC teams. Matter of fact, do I have that? Yeah, it's right here. Check. We have the updated group of 5 rankings, line TV. So there you see Memphis, of course. Congratulations to Memphis Tiger fans. They not finally, but they at least, I don't want to say prove, but I should say this. They proved that they are definitely a much better team than I thought they were going to be when the season began. With the amount of losses that they had, Ryan Silverfield has really done a solid job with this program. I wasn't really sure about him as the head coach, but he's without a doubt, this is his best coaching job. And I didn't even see them coming back. They were down 2 touchdowns late enough in that game, and USF could not close the deal. And they could regret that. It's possible. Now, I don't see that being necessarily the case, because I am going to pop up the standings so you can take a look at it. But I mean, we're not going to. Well, I guess we could just start with college football, right? Why not? We usually start with the NFL. Why don't we start with college football for a change? And when you take a look at the, as I'm going to pop up the AAC standings, they have the standard championship situation. So let's move it on over here. Okay, so let's get to, here it is, top conference right here. All right, so let me see if I can improve that. Okay. All right, so there you go. And you got Navy. Of course, Navy's up there. Tulane. Where are there it is. So you got Memphis, USF, Tulane, Navy, North Texas. So we have 5 teams representing the AAC from our group 5 top 10 rankings. And here they are. So here's really where it's going to come down from. I mean, look, you can't count Temple out. They're still there. They're still 3-1. So, well, so is East Carolina. But I don't think those 2 teams really have a chance. Okay, so as much as we liked Temple this year, as you know, we got to get real. Okay, so here are the standings. Now, taking a look, I'm going to take a look at the schedule. So South Florida, USF, and they do not play Tulane. I know that. But they are going to be playing Navy on the road. So they have one of those teams that they can knock off, but they do not have Tulane. And Tulane does have Memphis. That is going to be next week. All right. That one is at Memphis. Another huge game in the AAC. So really what South Florida wants to see happen is Memphis beat Tulane. All right. So get Tulane out of the way. They'll take care of Navy. And then the rest of the way, see, Tulane, they will have 2 more games where they could lose. This week at Texas San Antonio and at Temple on the 22nd. Okay. Navy, but they got their schedule really gets tough. And I don't think they're going to be able to hold on. They got North Texas this week, South Florida hosting, and at Memphis and Army. So I just Navy is I don't think they're going to even have that one loss. So I think Navy's going to get out of it. USF won't have to worry about North Texas. So I think they're going to still have a reasonable shot of playing and getting that rematch with Memphis. And I actually think that's the way it's going to go. So maybe what we'll do is, since we're now doing a Tuesday night show, and again, this could be every week. And the reason is a couple of reasons for that. And that is that we're doing Wednesday. We have already been starting. And now that the final bye is over for Penn State, we've got the Penn State show every Wednesday. And that comes on usually around 9:00 at night every Wednesday. And so that's already something where I really don't want to have to rush through this. And I can't really start it before 7. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. Let's see. So Penn State, no more buys for Penn State. So for the next 5 weeks, starting tomorrow, there'll be a show every Wednesday night. So I didn't want to interfere with that. Plus, we got the Breeders' Cup special. That's at 4:30 tomorrow. So John Hardoon from the Ragas and Sheets and I are going to go over the probably 3 Breeders' Cup races on Saturday. And then John is going to give a free pick. I think we have 3 total on Saturday's card. And then John will give a free pick on the Friday card. So that's 4 races, handicapping Breeders' Cup tomorrow starting at 4:30 Eastern time. And so I already looked at that as the first obstacle day and said, it's just too much. And I said, I'll move it to Tuesday this week. And I said, well, you know what? Why don't I just keep it on Tuesday? Because I have all of my information done by now. I usually just like to have that extra day to get more information with the injury reports and things of that nature. But hey, I've got all the information anyway. So let's just do it. The quicker I can get it to you guys, the better. Okay. So, and by the way, I know they have Notre Dame, Smarty. I was just bringing up the conference because that wouldn't matter for Navy in out of conference play. But that also is that's just a murderous schedule for Navy. I mean, and we mentioned that in the beginning of the year that, sort of like BYU, that they were going to get off to the schedule said, just like last year, that both programs could get off to good starts again. But once they reach that one point in their schedule, it's going to be tough the rest of the way. So far, BYU has passed all their tests. We'll see if Navy can do that. I don't really think they'll be able to. Okay, so that is really what will kick off our week as we start off, as I mentioned, with college football and just getting into this a little bit more. I did drop Tulane because we didn't have this last week, so it's just like 2 weeks since we had this poll, and I'm totally unimpressed with their 7-point win at home against Army. I mean, they should have done better than that. I just don't think. And look, I didn't think, sort of like the way I felt with Memphis is the way I feel with Tulane. And it sure looked like that would be the case up 2 scores late last week with the Memphis South Florida game. But again, big credit to Memphis because now it sure looks like, because I think Memphis will beat Tulane. Memphis proved last week that they can hang with South Florida and then beat them. Now, you're going to get into a neutral site, South Florida rematch with Memphis, and South Florida will beat them. Because first of all, it's hard to beat a good team twice in the same season. Secondly, they barely beat them this time and they were at home. As far as Tulane, I do think Memphis is a better team than Tulane. So I think they will knock them off. But that's next week. And Boise State, they still hang around. San Diego State keeps impressing me every week. And I love it that we were really early on. Not a lot of people talked about San Diego State when we did, as you know. And we have, and I want to move San Diego State higher than 6 myself because they just keep kicking butt. But the problem is they just haven't done it against good enough teams. So as much as I'm extremely impressed with what they're doing, as much as I believe in them, I can't move them into the top 5 yet based on their schedule. And then North Texas, still I think they've got that potent offense, dangerous team. You know what we think about Hawaii and Troy. Okay, so that's our group of 5 rankings. Now, let's take a look at the playoff rankings in the last 2 weeks. Nothing changed in the top 3. Our number 1 ranked team 2 weeks ago is still the number 1 ranked team this week, and that is Texas A&M. And I don't think Texas A&M is number 1. I think Ohio State is. I try not to pay too much attention to the regular poll. I don't want it to influence me in any way, or I just don't like doing it. But I know I'm going to have to sooner than later to kind of compare it and all that. But Texas A&M, they have just proven it. They've already proven it to me that they should be right now the best team in college football. And they keep beating teams, including LSU on Saturday night, when you just wonder, well, sooner or later they're going to lose. You can't go undefeated. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. But so far they are. So far they just keep rolling. And they will beat Texas. Okay, that's a guarantee. They're beating Texas. Indiana, Ohio State. So that stays the same. Now, I move Notre Dame up a little because Miami was in that spot. So I move Notre Dame up a little. I move Alabama up a little. Same thing with Oregon. Texas moves up a little bit more than a little. So I just really, even though they lost to Arizona State, don't care. Still impressed with this Texas Tech team. That was a good loss that they had. Georgia had the big win over Ole Miss. Vandy moves in with two wins, LSU, Missouri. And Georgia Tech also hangs in there. And, boy, I just love it. What a great season. This is the one thing that I love about college football now. Is it too much parity? Maybe. But that's the way – look, they're going to rein it in. It's just going to take a few years before they really try to get this situated with the transfer portal nonsense and everything else going on. And they will get it a little bit more fine-tuned. But in the meantime, you have to take advantage of this stuff. And we've done a pretty solid job. I know there are a lot of people out there that are just not having a good season in college football, but we're having a good season. And I feel good that we're ahead of the curve regarding the parity. Believing in teams like Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech before the season began and stating the reason why, the parity. That the parity is here to stay and people have just got to get it through. That the old days are done. And this is going to be the season that will wake everybody up. I was looking at one of the, I don't know which site it was, but it was a site and had like projected playoff teams. And it's interesting, but like out of all the projected playoff teams, there was like one that was like a usual team, like a Georgia Tech or something. And I'm like, wait a second here. So we have all this parity going on. We're still a month out. I get it. 6 weeks, however long for the playoffs. And it's like this model of yours is still saying that it's like the old times. You've got all the top teams in the playoffs again. No, I'm sorry. That's not going to be the way it will end up. There will be 2 or 3 teams in the playoffs that nobody's expecting. Who will those teams be? We'll see. But there are still going to be more and more upsets. I mean, Alabama almost lost to South Carolina. They came that close to losing this, and that would have been their second loss. And they still have to play a couple more big teams. And everybody's talking about them, that they could be like the best team in football right now. That's how crazy it is. And I love it. Okay, teams of the week. So we decided to put it down instead of doing 3 and 3 Power 5, Group of 5. This time we went top 5. Houston, Cincinnati, Big 12. Absolutely. Willie Fritz, monumental win at Arizona State. I didn't think they could pull it off. I just have to think that Arizona State burnt themselves out in that Texas Tech game. I mean, the scene after the game was it was probably too much. And they probably carried that along for just way too long. And then you go from being a 7-point home dog to a 7-point home favorite. And they caught up to them. And before they could get started, which was too late in the fourth quarter, they had been beaten. And Houston, Willie Fritz, tremendous job. That's why we like Willie. And he's got no reason to do anything else but stay at Houston. Because if he winds up in the playoffs or just in the championship game this year, he'll get calls. I know he's in the Big 12 already, but he'll still, he went from Tulane to Houston, and there's still another graduation you can go to, even though he's in the Power 4 right now. But why? You're at Houston. Fertile grounds for recruiting. Cincinnati, I figured this was a good time as any because I think they deserve to be here based on the way that they pretty much blew out Baylor. And I didn't think they could do it. And I've been their biggest proponent this season. They sure have made me look good. But they have some tough games to come. And if they're going to hang in there and be an actual Big 12 team that will have a shot at the championship game, well, they got to step up starting this week. That's why I figured, let me get them in there now. Impressive win versus Baylor because they got a tough one this week. Pitt, wow. Look, a couple weeks ago, they came through for us in an upset win against Florida State, and they haven't stopped. They started before that, then they keep going. I mean, this true freshman quarterback is undefeated. It's a nice little story going on in Pitt, but they've got a really tough schedule coming up. And Wake Forest, I mean, great job. Great job. Dickert's doing a fantastic job. Washington State, and look, I don't want to give him the credit for the Washington State playing well this year because it's not his team anymore, but he left it in apparently good hands. Rogers is doing an excellent job at Washington State, picking up, which could have been, a lot of people thought was going to be, well, Dickert left for Wake Forest, and Washington State has no conference. It's going to be a terrible year. And then Wake Forest, he's got them rolling, man. They beat SMU. I thought they would. We liked them last week. It was a sandwich game for SMU. Miami this week. The big win at Clemson last week, and Wake Forest got them. And Memphis, got to throw them in there, like I said, for that tremendous job. Okay, let's start talking about the games this week. So we're going to start with, where are we? All right, I guess we got to reload. All right. SEC. Here we go. All right. So bottom line with Vanderbilt, if you've been tuning into our channel, since the beginning of the season, they were my team. And I even still can't believe that they went from, what were they, like 400-1 when the season began? National championship, 200-1 to win the SEC. It's incredible. And it's all there for them. It's all there. If you would have said at the beginning of the season, this is the situation going into Texas, they would be like, oh, thank goodness we got a shot. And they do. And this is their shot. This is it. You win, you move on. You lose, you don't. It's the same thing for Texas. All right. So don't let anybody fool you as far as, which team needs it the most or any of that nonsense. Both teams need it the most. Why? Look at these two teams sitting there at 5-0. You are not getting in. It looks like right now, the way it looks, now it could change, but the way it looks, you can't have two losses to play in the SEC championship game. You can have two losses to get to the playoffs from the SEC. So if you just happen to lose a couple of games, and they both happen to be SEC, and you don't make the SEC championship game, that does not preclude you from being a playoff team. Matter of fact, you probably have a few of those teams. So as far as Texas and Vanderbilt, that's what they can look at. Is if we lose this game, are we SEC champion? No, that's out of the table. But then you'd have to run the table out of this and keep your fingers crossed that you get in. So the winner is in really good shape. But they're in really good shape like a lot of these other teams in the SEC. Look at that. So what we'll probably do is it's up to these 6 teams. Okay. That's why right here, winner moves on, loser done. And then you got Ole Miss, Georgia, with Georgia beating Ole Miss. And you got the 2 undefeated teams. And Alabama and Texas A&M are not playing. But as I mentioned, Texas A&M gets the game against Texas as usual at the end of the season. They got a couple tough games before that, but nothing that they shouldn't be able to handle. Just one more test this week at Missouri, really, if you look at it, and then the Texas game. Alabama survived South Carolina. They get the LSU game coming up next week after the bye. Also get Oklahoma back-to-back, LSU, Oklahoma, with that final rivalry game against Auburn. And I don't know. I don't know if Alabama is going to run the table, but it's not necessary because the way that this is going, I don't know. Obviously, if you're undefeated, you're going in. No question. If both Texas A&M and Alabama run the table, they're in. We all know that. But if there's a whole bunch of losses here, especially A&M, Bama get a loss, then we've got it's going to be a lot of fun because look at the rankings. 3, 4. I'm just noticing it right now. See, I have Texas A&M number 1. They have them at 3. Who would be at 2? Well, not a Big 12 team. Not an ACC team. So, it's the Big 10 team. So that's right, Indiana, Ohio State, I guess. Okay. All right. So now, as far as the game is concerned, and just consider this: that in the beginning of the season, would you have imagined that we'd be talking about these teams, this game, and this being the spread? Just imagine that. And it would have said that Arch Manning was healthy. Would you have even thought? And look at the rankings. Look at them. I didn't even realize Texas was 20. Look at Texas sitting there. Of course, again, that's why I said they got the one extra loss. So even though they're both in the same position in the SEC, so you do have to keep that in mind. Look, Texas has not looked very good the last couple of weeks in both of their wins. We all know that. They've been outgained in 3 of 4 SEC games now. That includes to the games that we just saw them squeak out the past couple of weeks. Kentucky, Mississippi State. Matter of fact, if you look at it, you have a Texas team that when they play their opponent, and if you look at it, I'm going to give you an example, and this is going to be about the offense for Texas, just to show you how disappointing Texas's offense has been this season. They played Florida. They had 341 yards of total offense. The very next bowl team that Florida played was Texas A&M, and they had 417 yards of total offense. Texas had 302 yards total offense against Oklahoma. Very next bowl team was Ole Miss, put up 431. Kentucky, they put 179 on Kentucky, 179. Tennessee, you know what they put up on them last week? 504. So it's obvious. This is not one game, couple of games. This is their team. This is what you get. It's not getting better than this. They're not going to improve. There's no superstars coming out of the woodworks. This is it. And This is not, they're going to lose again. When it happens, I don't know, but they are not a playoff team. I mean, Ryan Niblett might be their MVP. They're up 7 against Oklahoma late in the game. Punt return touchdown. Game over. They're down 7 against Mississippi State. What was it? Under 2 minutes to go. Punt return touchdown. Ties the game. Goes to overtime. Beats Mississippi State. He should probably be their MVP. And that's a bad thing. That's a bad sign. And as you know by now, Pavia is a road dog that you want to wager on. He's 14-3. He's 2-1 this year. We all know which one he lost. I don't want to rehash that. Last year, Texas went down to Vandy, 17-point favorite, 3-point win. Vandy did score late. Onside kick, no good, game over. This is a tough one, though, for me, believe it or not, because Texas has really, you can look at it this way. The schedule really worked out for Texas because they did not play their best football. Kentucky game, the offense, terrible. Then the offense in the Mississippi State game, they needed to have a big outing, and they did. And that's what actually good teams do. And they show you that they are well coached. And I do not think Sark is one of the best coaches in college football. And I'm not saying that, but he is a good coach. So they're well coached. They've got good football players on this team. And they really have, they showed it in the big win over Oklahoma. I know Mateer was banged up, but look, they weren't showing anything offensively either. But they found a way, and that's what they're doing. They're finding ways to just keep giving themselves a shot. But that's like how I said, sooner or later, it's going to end. I hope it's this week, but now that they're back home, it kind of worries me a little bit as a Vandy backer. What could possibly happen here. But let me see. I'm going to check and see where is check 1 second. Because I wanted to make sure about some injuries that that wasn't, I didn't see the injury situation with Arch Manning and his concussion. That's something that's going to be huge. Look, as of right now, it says that he's in concussion protocol. And as we know in the NFL, and I've been following these concussions for a few years now, and I haven't chronicled it, but it does seem that in the NFL, because I don't trust anything in college football when it comes to injuries, but in the NFL, if there's a concussion and you're a concussion protocol, you're not going to play. You miss a week. I don't remember the last time I heard of someone in the NFL in concussion protocol that played that week in the first week. Second week, fine, but not the first week. But I don't know. We'll see about college football. So what happens if, now look, I will say this, that it's only Tuesday. And after what happened last week in the NFL with Lamar Jackson, I know we're all gun shy about what to do regarding these injury situations. But I will say this: if you're like torn in this game, and you have good reason to like Vandy and feel like maybe I'm going to go with Vandy, then do it now. Okay, because if you feel that way now, then just do it, because, again, I think there is a reasonable chance that Manning will not play. And if that happens, then those odds are going to change. Now, I can't imagine, even though I thought the odds would be a little bit higher, like 3.5, I thought. I can't imagine that the line took into account the concussion. Because then, to me, that sounds like, what do we get, a favor Texas by 5 or 6? If that was the case, man, I sure wish Manning was healthy and I could have gotten that number. But we'll see. I don't know. Again, it's only Tuesday. I just think that if you find out he's not playing, by time you get to game time, especially on game day, it can move. Those lines can move a lot in game day, depending on how much money's going down. I really believe that Vandy will get a lot of money on game day. So if it doesn't move during the week and we know he's out, I'm telling you, I think, and let's say it moves a little bit. Let's say it moves to like 1.5. I really believe that by game day, it would switch and you'd have Vandy as a favorite. So I would take him right now. Now, this line was I thought it'd be a little bit bigger, but I'm not surprised, because I like Florida. And maybe that would have been the first hint that I shouldn't have been surprised. Now, it worries me that if you look at it, these two teams in the last 4 years, it's been all Georgia. They've won 4 straight, covering 2 out of the 4, beating Florida by a 38-16 margin. 38-16. Now, here's the key. They were favored in all 4 by 14 or more points. And now it's 7. Okay? So that does worry me a little. But everything else I kind of like. It's Georgia. The defense, not great. But the one thing that they have done better on defense is against the run. And Florida does need to run the football. They got a nice little running back. We don't trust the quarterback very much. He has a couple of weapons, but you got to use those guys because that's where Georgia's weakness is in the pass defense. I don't know if Florida how much they can capitalize on that. But Florida needs to be in a low scoring game. They can't get into some firework game with Georgia, nor do I think Florida's defense would allow that. I think their defense is too good and I don't think their offense is that good. I don't think their offense is good enough to exploit Georgia's defense that well to have the game in the 30s. So I think Florida's going to have to win one of those, 21-17 type of games or lose one of those games. Georgia, how about this? They're 0-8 against the spread. Their last 8 versus losing teams. How about that? So now a lot of the time, I don't say a lot, but I would guess that for the most part, some of those lines are pretty big, but it's still a number and the number matters. Georgia sure has kind of woken up since the Alabama loss. They've won their last 3 straight up ATS since the loss. So, they're playing pretty good football. It's the defense that worries me. I think they beat a real good Mississippi team at home a few weeks ago. Mississippi's defense, not all that great. And it's like, yeah, we all kind of knew the way, it's Lane Kiffin. He's going to lose this game, and he did. And but I'm sure there's Florida fans that feel the same way about Florida in this matchup. But check this out. Florida's covered 12 straight as an SEC dog of 2 or more when they take on an opponent off of back-to-back straight-up ATS wins. Okay, 12 straight. New head coach Billy Gonzalez, interim. He's a coach, an assistant wide receiver coach, 12 years, 3 different times. So he just couldn't get enough for the Florida Gators. So he's going to get a chance as an interim coach. And there you see the number. But I side with Florida here. I just think that Georgia defense, I think that they'll be vulnerable. Both teams coming off a bye. This is the season for Florida. This is it. Now they can still go to a bowl, but really this would be it. Because if you win this game, then they're in a good position to go to a bowl. But I mean, even though they got a tough schedule, but this is for Georgia. They've already got the Alabama loss, so yeah. I like Florida, but it's not one of those where I'm going to just be real. They're not like a top pick because I can't do that in this type of rivalry where the other team has owned the team I'm going to put money on. I just can't do it, especially with the number being 7 instead of the usual 14. Arkansas, Mississippi State. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this game, but I don't think Arkansas should be favored by 4.5. Remember what we said last week? Sick and tired of hearing people say that this is a different team, Arkansas, with Bobby Petrino. No, they're not. And they did it again last week. Come on. There were a lot of people on Arkansas last week, and we were not one of them. We didn't buy into that stuff. I will get into Auburn in a minute, but that was a real gut check win by Auburn because Auburn's a better team than Arkansas. And I don't care what people say about Hugh Freeze. He knows how to coach. Okay? And he got a quarterback to play well for him last week. And if he could find a quarterback, Auburn will be just fine. He just has to find a quarterback. Auburn, they got a lot of money there, boosters to find players. Well, go ahead and find a quarterback. You find one, and Hugh Freeze will win at Auburn. Arkansas, check this out, 0-9 against the spread as a home favorite. 0-9. And they're 0-4 straight up and against the spread versus Power 4 teams, including BYU, during that stretch. So not only are they not covering as a home favorite, but they're losing all 4 in that stretch when they take on Power 4 teams. And the only thing with Mississippi State in this game is how are they going to react to the way that they screwed up last week? I mean, I just praised Texas for coming back and winning that game, but in reality, Mississippi State, come on, what are you doing? You have a 3-score lead in the fourth quarter. Ugh. And they kind of did the same thing. I mean, if you look at it, their last 3 losses, they could have won all 3 of them. They could be sitting here at 7-1, Mississippi State, but they couldn't beat Tennessee. They had the Florida debacle where you got intercepted by a defensive lineman, and in the Texas game. And they have tough games coming up. They may not even go bowling. And the only chance they have to go bowling, they have to beat Arkansas. And then they need one upset in the last 3. Okay, but they must beat Arkansas, which is why I'm going to take them. They have been the better team than Arkansas this year. And that 0-9 trend looks awfully juicy. South Carolina, I think they pulled their pud last week with Alabama. We talked about that being a potential trap game for Alabama in a way where, they've had some really big games, and it was inevitable that they'd kind of take the foot off the gas a little bit because that's what you do in football. Again, you don't have to go undefeated anymore. This is more like the NFL than college. And that's what we did last week. But give Alabama credit. Unfortunately, you got to also look at South Carolina the way that we just did with Mississippi State. And they blew it. Matter of fact, tie game, still had a chance. Tie game, got the ball. You got your top player, your quarterback, Sellers. He's the man, right? No, he fumbles. Alabama, touchdown, game over. They were up 8 points with 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go, and they lost by 7. They've lost 5 out of their 6, and now they're on the road at Mississippi, coming off the huge win against Oklahoma. And a Mississippi schedule. I mean, you got South Carolina, FCS, Florida at home, and then at Mississippi State. That is a schedule that says we're not going to lose again. So if we don't get into the SEC championship game, it's going to have to be some sort of rankings. I don't know how the SEC does it. Common opponents. I don't know. I don't know how they do it. Now, I'm not going to say that the Florida-Mississippi State game are gimmies, though, because I don't think they are. Not with Ole Miss. Not with Lane Kiffin. But this week, I actually feel good about Ole Miss. And that's the reason. I just think that South Carolina will be damaged a little bit because they haven't had a good season. Everything, it looked like went into that game last week. Save our season, everything. And they lost. And the way that they lost, they're not going to the SEC championship. It's just going to a bowl. That's it. Well, we did that last year. This was supposed to be there were people. Remember the beginning of the season, there were a lot of analysts that were picking South Carolina as their sleeper. And they have had a very disappointing season from the get-go. Ole Miss beat South Carolina 27-3 last year as a 10-point road favorite. And I just kind of feel that, again, I think Ole Miss is going to catch them at the right time. But we'll see. I do believe Ole Miss will screw up at some point. I say screw up, but I think they're going to lose before the championship game. I don't know when or where, but I do think they're going to lose one more game. But we'll see. I just don't think it'll be this week. Tennessee, Oklahoma, and you've got a Oklahoma team that is reeling. And John Mateer, his injury just ruined their season. It's just plain and simple. He is not the same player before the injury. And then they got Alabama next week on the road. Then Missouri, LSU. Now, with Brian Kelly gone, all of a sudden, anybody that's got LSU on their table, you're okay now. You got a shot. That's now a very winnable game. But, Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, 3 in a row like this, they're not going to survive it. It's too much. Material's not healthy. He hasn't played well. They did have to run the table, and I don't see it. And check this out, too. Since the beginning of last year, which is 9 losses, all 9 have been by 7 or more points. So when they lose, 7 or more. When they lose, they lose. So that's telling you, don't worry about a 3-point spread. If you think Tennessee is going to win the game, then just, even if the game goes up to 4, whatever, don't worry about it. Just take Tennessee. Tennessee beat Oklahoma last year by 10 points as a 5-point road favorite. And I'm going to take Tennessee. I don't like what I saw. I do not like what way that game played out against Ole Miss. They're just not the same team right now that they were pre-Mateer injury. Auburn, give a lot of credit to Hugh Freeze. And what a great timing as far as Daniels, the quarterback. About Jaylon Daniels, the Kansas quarterback. Well, this is his brother, Ashton. And Ashton had a couple of years starting at Stanford. And they were a pretty bad team. Comes to Auburn late. Doesn't get in until late July. Really behind. Doesn't have time to compete for the job. Just takes him a while. So much so that even though all season, as we've been saying, Arnold is a one-trick pony, basically just runs the ball. That's it. You can't, not very accurate throwing the football. You're not winning big games with Arnold. You're just not. Is it an improvement from last year's quarterback situation? Yes, but that's about it. So Daniels finally gets into some action last week. Why? The running game. Everything's going well with the offense, the running game, and they're driving down the field. It's a 14-10 game, and I think the whole drive had been runs. And they decide, well, let's try to catch them off guard with a pass. What was it, 95-yard pick six? And Arkansas goes up 21-10. Goodbye, Arnold. That might have been your last pass as a starting quarterback for Auburn. Now, he is not named a starting quarterback. Again, it's only Tuesday, but I can't see how it's possible that he does not give Daniel a start. Is he a savior? No. But again, the way the program has struggled at quarterback. Like I said, Arnold is an improvement from where they were. But Daniels can be an improvement over Arnold, even if it's just a little bit. And those little extra differences from where they were last year, as it keeps getting better, all they need this year with that good defense is a little bit more out of the quarterback position, especially throwing the ball. Now, Daniels can throw it, but he can also run the ball. That's what's good about Daniels, is he can run the ball, as we saw last week. So I think he's going to get the start. And Auburn fans, you're thinking about the bowl, which we said they were going to go bowling a few weeks ago. We've said it all season. It's a bowl team. I know I know you're being impatient. I get it. But This is where they're set up nicely. Just win this game. And if Daniels can have a good game and you win this game and cover, meaning it's a comfortable win, you're going to have a chance against Alabama. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Auburn is 16-4-2 against the spread when they take on an opponent off a double-digit loss. 16-4-2. They've covered 7 straight off a straight-up ATS win versus an opponent off back-to-back losses like Kentucky. I actually thought the line would be a little bit bigger than this because Kentucky yes, did they have the good loss against Texas? Yeah, okay. But really, besides that, they've been outclassed. They were outclassed last week. Auburn's defense is really good. And remember, we told you a couple weeks ago in that Texas matchup how much I thought that keep an eye on this Cutter Boley kid. He showed a little something those first few outings because he's only a redshirt freshman. And sure enough, man, he's even showing more. The more experience he gets, Kentucky's got themselves a nice little quarterback. And we all know that's the ticket in college football. But you better hold on to him. And we'll see what happens with Mark Stoops because he's been there for 13 years. And last couple of years have not been good. So, you can see that if something happens and Mark Stoops leaves, depending on who they replace him with, now I don't know what Boley's ties are to the program, but he's going to be a good quarterback. And he's going to make some money. 5 touchdowns last week against Tennessee. And they lost big. That shows you where Kentucky is. So, yeah, I like Auburn in this matchup. As much as I like the kid, Boley, the fact is he's a young kid. He's going on the road now against a very good defense. I think that's asking for a little too much at this stage of his career, but we'll see. I mean, I just think Auburn, after the win last week, I don't think they're going to go backwards. I just don't. I think that this is going to be them going forward at least a little bit because next week they play Vanderbilt. Actually, they got to go on the road too. So, and that's it. SEC. Okay, so there's your SEC. Now, let's go to the Big Ten. And who would have thought this, huh? When the season began, who would have thought? 20 points. That's the point spread here. Wow. And Penn State's got Indiana at home next week. These would have been really good games. That's what we all thought when the season began. Anyway, Penn State has been outgained in the last 4, all of their losses. But they've lost all 4 by just 13 points. So keep that in mind. And they lost last 2 by 1 point each. So they're not giving up. They're not, we'll see you next year. None of that. They're still playing hard, but they have limitations, especially at quarterback. Now they got a young quarterback that has played a game now, tough environment, week to prepare. We're going to find out a lot about this young quarterback. Now, a lot of fans at Penn State very excited about this young quarterback. And if you want to find out more about this game, check out like I was saying at the beginning of the show, check out the Penn State podcast tomorrow night. It should be about 9:00 live right here, and get the take on the game and Penn State and how they've been to bye and all that. Both teams have been off byes. Ohio State has beaten Penn State 8 straight times, which is part of the undoing of James Franklin. But they're only 3-5 ATS in those 8. And this is a big number. And all of those games were 13 points or less. Okay, so now you get a Penn State team that comes in, big number. And they actually, if you look at it, when you look at the matchup with Penn State, with Ohio State, they've covered all 3 during that 8-game losing streak when they were a dog. I think that was it, right? Let me make sure about that. Because I know they've been a dog quite a bit. Might have been thinking about something else. Either way, the fact is that Penn State has actually been, because look, just going over these games, they were dogged by 3 last year, lost by 7, dogged by 4, lost by 8, I know there it is. There's wait a second. We've got 15 dog, 18 dog, 11 dog, 20 dog. The 20 dog was on the 19th. That's what I was getting to. I stopped I must have gotten interrupted. So what I was going to get to is that when they were dogged by a certain amount of points. So let's see, because they won in 2016. That's when that was their last win. But when they were a dog by 20 in 2019, they covered. They were dogged by 11. No, that's not high enough. They were dogged by 18 and a half, and they covered, and 15 and a half, they covered. So when the lines were that big, it was at 15 over 15, 18, 20, just like it is here at 20, they covered all three of them. That's what I was getting to. Anyway, Ohio State's schedule is not very tough. So they had, the big game that they've already won, and that's kind of it. I mean, they get the Michigan game at the end of the season, which is always going to be at this point the big game. And we all thought that Texas. Look, I'm not saying that Ohio State was hiding from the opposition. No, they don't hide from the opposition. But it turns out Texas was not as good as we thought they were going to be. That's number one. And then the rest of the schedule, we didn't think Penn State was going to be like this, so it's not their fault. And then the rest of their schedule, they got Michigan. That's it. Their toughest game this year really was Texas. And the other toughest opponent was like Washington, Illinois. So I guess it was Washington on the road. That was their toughest game, really, if you look at it, besides the Texas game. So that's why we don't know yet about Ohio State. That's why I don't have them number one. Why would I put them number one in the polls for? For what reason? They have nothing to do with last year's team. You're telling me that Texas A&M has not impressed you more with the teams that they've played compared to Ohio State? Come on now. But if Ohio State wins this one, like we're all expecting, they should run the table until Michigan. And then we'll see what happens. Now, they're going to the playoffs no matter what. So, it's all just like last year. It's all about the championship now. Now, of course, we all know Ohio State, they want to beat Michigan. Don't get me wrong. Especially after winning the championship last year. I think fans this year would probably take the Michigan win over another championship. All right. As far as the game, I'm actually taking Penn State. I just think that they're still a good defensive team, and I think they're going to play better than people think. But how long can that happen? Now, they can't give away points. In other words, they can't have special teams blunders, things of that nature. They've got to just play their best game. And if they can play their best game of the season, then I think they can keep this up to cover the spread. Meaning, definitely a low-scoring game, but something like 20-7, something like it's 13-7 in the fourth quarter, Ohio State gets a late touchdown, game over. I think Penn State can do that. And also what it means is it would be late enough where they could put a little bit of a scare into Ohio State. I think they can do that. This line's a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to take Rutgers. I did not take them last week. I liked Purdue in that one because I just didn't like the way things were going at Rutgers. I mean, they've had just way too many injuries, and Odom had that really big trend going for him. And it looked like Rutgers was going to lose the game. It really did. But, hey, give them credit. And this is what good coaches do. Because, as I said before, Rutgers is not going to be, and their basketball team the same way. We'll be talking college basketball soon enough on the channel. They're going to have to go through a tough season because the money wasn't there. But starting next year, the money will be there, and they're going to need it because KJ Duff was a monster. And we talked about that the last couple of weeks. Duff and Strong, the best wide receiver tandem in college football outside of Ohio State. And Duff had 241 yards last week. And why? Because Strong wasn't there. So Strong should be back because he was close to playing. So unless he had a setback, and keep an eye on that. but they have to have all their guns out there blazing. Rutgers 6-2-1 against the spread in their last 9 as a road dog since last year. 2-1 in this spot this year. And check this out for Illinois. 0-10 against the spread as a home favorite after they allow 35 or more. 0-10. Last year, they played a really wild game at Rutgers. Wild game. Went down to the wire. Touchdown pass Illinois with a few seconds left. They win the game. And I kind of think we might see the same thing. I mean, we all know by now that Rutgers can't stop anybody. But they were a little bit better last week. And do you know why? He won't admit it, but we all know Greg Schiano took over the defense. You saw it on the sidelines. It was obvious. So he had enough. Now, there's only so much you can do because you don't have the players. But he got the job for a reason all those years ago because the guy knows how to coach, especially on defense. And now he's taken over. So I think that'll keep him in this one. I think it makes it a 4-quarter game. You know, if they don't cover, I think it's one of those things where Illinois scores late. But I don't think this is the worst idea in the world for a upset pick either. Indiana, I see no reason that they shouldn't have their way. But I think this is, but keep this in mind, sort of like what we said about Alabama. There's only so much you can go and just keep blowing out teams every week. Sooner or later, especially when now you're on the road, you're just going to have one of those games where, you know, it maybe take you a whole half to get going. And I kind of think that's what we're going to deal with here in Maryland. I don't think this is going to be 35-3 at halftime. I think this one might be close at halftime, and then Indiana just takes over when they need to. I'd stay away from the line, actually, because Maryland's 5-1 against the spread, 4-0 against the spread this year as a dog, including their last 3 by 4 or less. So do I think it's going to be 4 or less? No, but it's 21 points. In this one, Minnesota has been outgained in 5 of their last 6. Not that good of a team, to tell you the truth, when you're a 5-3 team. But we've kind of talked about that. So they are what they are. I actually think PJ Fleck can coach. I know he can be annoying. And I think that with all the jobs opening up right now, there's so many good jobs opening up. I'm going to be surprised, maybe even shocked, if he doesn't take one of those jobs. As long as Minnesota does what they're supposed to, go to a bowl. All right, I got them to a bowl. Not a very good team, but I got them to a bowl. That'll just prove once again he can coach, and I think he's going to get a job. They're 0-2-1 against the spread as a home favorite this year. Okay, even though they won all 3. Michigan State 4-0 against the spread as a dog this year. 3-0 against the spread as a road dog this year. And 0-5 straight up, 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 this year. All as dogs. I mean, all losses, by the way, by double digits, which is also kind of strange considering they've covered most of them, 4 to 5. And, you know, I know the line went down to 3 because it was 4. We're down to 3. I don't know. I just get the feeling that Michigan State's going to win this one. Purdue and Michigan. I don't think Michigan can really blow out anybody this year based on the way their offense is. They want to run the ball, but they don't have a good enough offensive line. They want to throw the ball because they've got an exciting young quarterback, but he doesn't have enough weapons. So, yeah, it's just been the way their season's been. And yet they're still in position. Schedule-wise, they're going to be favored. Matter of fact, I think they're going to be favored in double digits for the next 3 games before the Ohio State game. So they still have a chance to get into the Ohio State game. And with only 1 loss in the conference, put themselves in a position where they can maybe knock off either Ohio State from going to the Big Ten championship game or moving past Ohio State for the championship game. But they have to take care of business. They're on the road at Northwestern and Maryland, and neither of those games would be easy for Michigan. Not the way their team has looked this year, but so far as this game against Purdue, it's a big spread. I couldn't take this game either way. USC and Nebraska. Now this spread's a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be. USC is coming off a bye though, and that is important. They've had a whole week to prepare. Nebraska had that really tough win against Northwestern. Very fortunate to have won that game. Of course, we had Northwestern. Lincoln Riley, we all know his spot here is not good as a road favorite at USC. 3-13. 3-13. ATS is a road favorite. But they're 5-0-1 all time straight up against Nebraska. So they've never lost to Nebraska, including an 8-point home win last year in their first Big Ten matchup. They were a 6-point favorite in that one. And now we can say this once again with Nebraska. We said it the Michigan game. They've lost 28 straight versus top 25 teams, including the Michigan game. The last win against the top 25 team was 2016. But we are talking about points, 6.5 now. And that's what worries me, is the 6.5. I thought this was going to be maybe 4.5. I didn't think it'd be up to 6.5. I think USC is a better team, but I can't put money on them to cover on the road. Not against a team that is more than capable of winning. And this would be Rhule's signature win. He's waiting for his signature win. He was hoping it was the Michigan game. He still would have preferred it to be the Michigan game. But hey, he'll take it. At this point, he'll take it. He'll take USC. Let's get started with these signature wins. And, they're a viable upset pick. You're getting 2-1 on the money line. So it's not a bad idea to take Nebraska with as bad as Riley is as a road favorite. Throw a little money on the money line. I just think USC is a better team. And they're off a bye. And I still think they're going to be able to be relevant the rest of the way. They got that Oregon road game. So it's tough. I mean, I like USC to win a close one. So I'm going to take the points. USC win a close one. But, it's intriguing. It's tempting, a 2-1 money line as well. And that's going to wrap it up for the Big Ten. Okay, let's go over to the ACC. And we're going to start on Friday. And this one with our North Carolina Tar Heels. And I say our North Carolina Tar Heels because you remember last week we had them as a double-digit upset pick against Virginia. And it was right there for the taking. The way that game was going, the whole game, it was, it's perfect. Setting up perfectly. And they couldn't close the deal. And they went for 2 in overtime. They went for the 2 in overtime, and they could not get it done. But they were a nice play on the 10.5 if you got it. And they outgained Virginia. And the reason we liked them in the game was because after the bye, remember we talked about that, the defense really looked strong in that loss to California. And that was a game where the player for North Carolina was about to score a touchdown late in the game to give them the lead and maybe the win. And he was stripped before he went into the goal line, and they lost the game. So they came back, had another good game, and lost at the very end with Virginia, an even better team. And now they're at Syracuse with some pretty weak quarterback that's done nothing since they lost Angeli. I mean, I don't know why this line keeps going up. For what reason? I mean, I just think that this whole Bill Belichick negativity thing has gotten so out of hand. But hey, it worked out for me last week. I took advantage of it, and I'm taking advantage of it again. North Carolina, yes, they're 2-5, but they still can go to a bowl. And don't think that Belichick doesn't want that. because if you can, next week they play Stanford. So if you win this game, you beat Stanford, you're 4-5. You have a shot. You've got a shot at a bowl. And I think they're going to beat Syracuse. See, if they lose to Syracuse, it's going to be over. They're going to turn the ball over. And look, I do not like Lopez. As I said last week, they just have to find a quarterback. And I believe Belichick will. Okay? They're going to find him a quarterback. This is a transition year. It was what things happened the way it did. But he's going to have the entire offseason and money to get a quarterback. And he'll get one. And when he does, and with Belichick's expertise on defense, which is starting to show its true colors, you watch out. I'm telling you, Belichick's going to get the last laugh. So I don't know. I don't know why this is. It scares me that North Carolina is a 2.5-point dog in this one. Miami's SMU. This is one of the big games in the ACC, and we told you about the sandwich game with SMU, and this is part of the reason, part of the sandwich. It's homecoming for SMU, but hey, they lost last week, took some of the luster out. Let's take a look at let me see what we got in the standings here in the ACC. Okay, so here are all the one-loss teams and undefeated teams, and all of these teams have a shot. And what's interesting is look who's on the bottom, the 10th ranked Miami Hurricanes. Oh, I love seeing Georgia Tech and Virginia up there. It's so much fun. Pitt versus Louisville beat Miami. So anyway, so that's the standings. And what it says, again, it's wide open. But it's 12.5 for a reason. This is not the team SMU had last year. But yet Miami's better than they were last year. It's only the second ever meeting. The last meeting was in 1965 between these two programs. SMU is now look, the homecoming is the only thing that would worry me about 12.5 because you're going to get their best effort. They're coming off a loss. This is it. This is the season for SMU and for Miami, believe it or not. And this is the reason why I have no problem going with Miami here, even though it's 12.5, because I'm just having a hard time believing that Miami is going to put this game in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes to go, and it's a one-score game, which means their season's on the line. No, I don't think SMU is good enough. This has been too good of a season for Miami for them to let that happen. Now, can there be a backdoor cover? Absolutely. I think that happens more likely. But yeah, I just and look, the line's gone up. It was 10. Now it's 12.5. Miami's schedule, if they win this game, they should win their next 3. And yes, they should win this game and then win their next 3 because this is their toughest game in their next 4. But the last game of the season is in Pitt. That could be a monster game. Yeah, I don't know what to make out of Clemson. Keep an eye on the quarterback situation, of course. I don't know if they've named the starter this week between Kubiak and Vizina. I don't think it really matters. Vizina had a really good game against SMU, so I don't think it really matters. Clemson's defense just let them down. They've let them down all season. They got studs on that defense. They were supposed to be a couple of guys that were first-round draft pick material. They have not had a good season at all. And that worries me now because this is the first game since the loss that ended their season officially. Now it's just about respectability and getting into a ball, and that's about it. I give them more of a chance than most programs, though, because they don't have a lot of transfers. And the transfers, which is the reason why we've been able to take advantage of teams like Florida State and a few others where we know, hey, the season's over now. What are you going to do when you were just bought to play here? Well, you're going to give up. That's what you're going to do. That's what Florida State did against Stanford. So I don't really see that happening here. But you do have to give points, and I just can't do that with Clemson. This is a big game, though, for Duke. They still have a shot for the ACC, and they have been a good team this year. They just haven't been able to get over the hump against the better teams. I don't know. Clemson's one of those teams this year, so I think Duke is the play here. They've outgained 6 of their 7 teams they played. They also included in that stretch Georgia Tech and Illinois. outgaining both of those teams. And they got blown out by Illinois because of all the turnovers. They've also covered 7 straight as dogs of less than 7 coming off a bye. So for whatever that's worth, I'm going to go ahead and take Duke in this one. Louisville showed the residual effects of the of the big win against Miami. They came down to earth a little bit. 7-point game, fourth quarter against Boston College. They've had a terrible season. Touchdown, two-score lead, game over. But still, that's to be expected. Now here, 10-point favorite on the road to those Hokies who screwed me last week against Cal. Yes, Cal has a 10-point lead at halftime as a 6-point road dog. You know we loved Cal last week. They're looking good. They've got a 16-point advantage now going into the second half. Good time for a live hedge, bet wager. So what happens? It's now, let's fast forward. It's a tie game. It's the end of the game. Virginia Tech's about to step up and kick a field goal. Now, I had Cal on both the spread and the money line. And remember, that's what I said last week. I love the spread, but the money line too. Why not? So I really wanted the money line. And so when they lined up for the field goal, if Tech kicked the field goal, well, I've got the cover, but I didn't get the money line. Well, he misses the field goal. Go to overtime, 8 points after the 2-point conversion. You know, when you lose one of those in overtime, it happens to us all far too often in college football. It kills you. Well, they're back at it again this week against Louisville. Not a good spot for Louisville. They're 4-10-1 against the spread in their last 15 as a road favorite. But they are 1-0 this year in that role. Virginia Tech 1-11 straight up and against the spread when they take on an opponent off a double-digit victory. And they're 0-2 in that role this year. So that's pretty bad. Look, I'm taking Louisville. I think that they're going to be able to respond after the Boston College close call. But Virginia Tech is playing better, much better than they were before the firing of Brent Pry. And that's going to make him a dangerous team, especially, against Virginia and Louisville. I mean, they could play spoiler here in the ACC. We'll see if they can do it here or not. Like I said, I'm going to go with Louisville. I think they're going to be able to, like I said, respond after last week. But this is still a dangerous situation. I think it's better that it's a 3:00 game, not a night game. Those night games at Blacksburg can be very dangerous. Yeah, we don't have to spend any time on this one. Pittsburgh and Stanford, we do. And that's because of Stanford. Remember a couple weeks ago, how can you not? We took Stanford as a 17-point home dog to upset Florida State, and they did. Now, one of the reasons we did that is because before that game, they had already beaten 2 previous teams as dogs at home. I mean, one previous team was a dog at home because the other one, they weren't a dog. I think they were a slight favorite against San Jose State. Anyway, Stanford, even though they're only 3-5 this year, they're 3-0 at home. And 2 of those wins, dog 14, dog 17. So that has to get Pittsburgh's, that has to get has to get them to wake up and to say, don't fall asleep on this opponent. As I said in the beginning, ever since this young quarterback Heinzel has taken over, the freshman, they've been really a different team. 4-0, straight up and against the spread. They got a bye next week. And then after the bye, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami. It doesn't get, they have got to just dispatch of Stanford. And because you lose this game, the season's over. Even though it would only be because they don't have what is their numbers here? Yeah, they have just the season's over. They got the one conference loss. So, they cannot afford this loss. And that's why, as good as they're playing, I'm just not going to buy. See, Florida State was in a different mindset. Boston College, turns out, wasn't as good as we thought they were. So Pittsburgh is. So this is a completely different situation. But it is a lot of points, and they're going to buy. So if they get off to a 3-touchdown lead, and Stanford has played well at home, give them credit for that. You could see a backdoor cover. You could see them, hanging in there. So it's a dangerous game. So I just don't think it's one of those games where I'm going to jump all over Pittsburgh and think that they're going to win, like they've blown out some of the teams at home this year. This is a little bit different. Remember, East Coast, West Coast, all of that stuff. Look, if I had to pick the game, I'd probably pick Pittsburgh. But I'm going to stay away from this one. Another East to West Coast game that you need to keep an eye on, because Virginia, this is tough. They again, another team that cannot afford a loss. They've already got the loss to North Carolina State, and as hot as they've been, this is it. They've won 3 overtime games in the last 4 games on the season. That's crazy, but it's also shows a lot. It says that you guys you're tough, resilient, and maybe this is your year. In order for that to be the case, you have to take care of business. And I think because of what happened last week, I think that was one of those situations where, even though they've been in these overtime games, and I shouldn't even say last week, look at the last couple of weeks, they're just getting by in these overtime wins against teams that they shouldn't be getting by with. So I think there's something more there to this team. I really do. And I think that, come on, are we going to overtime again? I don't think so, but I can see a close game because they've been playing so many of them. And that does worry me. Every point matters then. And Cal, I don't know what you're going to get out of Cal from week to week. I really don't. They've had a very strange season, even though it's been a good season so far. It looked like they were going to win 6 games and go be bowl eligible last week, but they blew that. And both teams have combined 0-5 ATS in the last 5. So I don't like that. If I take the game, I'm taking Virginia, but I just can't touch the game. This is actually going to be another tough one for these 3 straight tough games. Well, I wouldn't say Pittsburgh Stanford game tough, but not games that you could just, we'll be okay. Because North Carolina State, they can be dangerous. On the road at Georgia Tech, no problem. I think Georgia Tech wins easy. Now, this is in Raleigh. I think it's going to be a lot different. The Wolfpack, 6-0-1 against the spread as an ACC home dog by 3 or more points. So this is their spot. They've had some really big Saturday night or wins at home against really good teams. So this is a spot they're very familiar with under Dave Doran, especially with an undefeated Georgia Tech team. Now, what will this loss mean to Georgia Tech? It's not the end of the world. If you're Georgia Tech or Virginia, if you're either one of these 2 teams sitting there at undefeated, okay, you don't want to lose, but if you lose, it ain't the end of the world. And the reason why is because as long as you win out after that, the likelihood is that you stand a good chance of going to the ACC championship game. Now, and the other thing for Georgia Tech, you would think it's going to be a lot harder for them because they're undefeated. And you would think that at some point when you're undefeated, that you're going to slip up. So that's what I'm concerned with. And we just told you about North Carolina State, really good spot for them. Home dog at night. But they're 0-4 straight up and against the spread in their last 4 versus FBS teams. So NC had that big win against Virginia early in the season when no one realized how good Virginia was going to be. And that's it. They have not had good games against good teams. They've just been almost, it's like they're almost going, they're waiting to have that big win where they're going to have one good win because they have it in them. They're that type of program this season that they have. Now, you might say they've already done it. They beat Virginia. But how funny would that be if the only team to beat the two undefeated teams, Georgia Tech and Virginia, was North Carolina State? But that could happen. Yeah, this is a tricky one because it's very tempting to take Georgia Tech when you're only giving less than a touchdown, and Georgia Tech is much better than North Carolina State than just having to give up 5.5 points. But it is for a reason. The last two ACC games for Georgia Tech at Boston College and then hosting Pitt. And the reason for that is because they end the season like they normally do against Georgia. And what a monster game that could be. So if Georgia Tech wins this one, they likely beat Boston College. And they go to play Pittsburgh at home at 10-0. And what they would love more than anything is if they were going to lose, all right, let's lose to Georgia. Let's run the table. We go to the ACC championship game. We lose to Georgia. We're in the ACC championship game. We win that. We're in the playoffs. Okay. I don't know what this line's about. I really don't. I'm kind of stunned a little bit at this line. Now, I really was hoping last week that Purdy, we talked about him last week. It came off that big game the week prior. He's a much better passer than Ashford. And really hoping that he was going to be able to take over the program, take over the reins, because he was the more talented guy. And he got hurt. He had a bad start to the game. Ashford closed the game and did matter of fact, Ashford threw a very key 4th down pass. Excellent catch, too. Right around midfield to get them into, it was like a 20-yard pass. Puts him at about the 30, whatever. Field goal kicker, game winner, over. So give him credit for that. But I think they would be a much more dangerous team if they had Purdy and he was out there. I don't understand this line, though. Why is, after what Florida State did with Stanford, and nothing has changed. Now, maybe you could say, well, you have to have pride, don't you? But when you make money, and a lot of the key guys are making money on Florida State, when you're making money, there might be enough of those guys. They don't have to be the entire team or half the team. It just has to be enough of the key guys that were bought to play there to just not really care as much. Like, oh, don't give me, I don't have pride. Now, maybe they come out and those types of players who showed no pride in the Stanford loss will show it here. But I'm going to bet that. I'm going to put my money on that. Why would you think that would happen anyway? There's no reason for it. Again, Florida State is not playing for anything. Nothing. Except going to a bowl. Whoop-de-doo. And we don't even know how many players that they bought to play there are going to wind up even playing in that bowl game. So I don't know why the line's going up. But it is. And I think you should take advantage of it. On top of just liking the game without ever seeing the trends, Wake Forest is 14-0-1 against the spread when they take on an opponent off consecutive straight-up losses. 14-0-1. And believe it or not, Florida State Wake. You might not think this is the case, but Dave Clawson was a pretty good coach. Wake Forest has beaten Florida State 3 of the last 4 times they played. And this has been over, I think, a 4, maybe a 5-year period. This has been recently. Now, they didn't play last year, but Florida State did beat them in 2023. And I think they played the 3 previous. So they might have played the last 5 years, the 4 without last year. I think that's how it was. But the bottom line is Wake Forest, they've been like this pain in the neck to Florida State recently. They've been like one of these average to below average ACC teams. And actually, they've been average. Clawson is, this is an average program. But come on, we can't beat Wake Forest. That's what's been going on with Florida State the last 5 years. So here you're getting 9.5 now. We're starting at 7. I mean, you're getting 270 on a money line. Take it. Take it. Wake Forest has outgained their last 4 opponents. And in those last 4, they're 3-1 straight up, 4-0 against the spread. And the only loss to Georgia Tech by 1 point when they went for 2 points for the win. Next week, Wake Forest is at Virginia. So it really gets interesting next week. So yeah, I'm all over Wake Forest here. And I'm already ahead because of the Stanford win. Okay, now let's go to the Big 12 matchups. Houston, we talked in the beginning of the episode about what a great job Willie Fritz has done. And he had his signature win for Houston last week at Arizona State. The line has actually gone down a little bit. Freshman quarterback for West Virginia, Scotty Fox. Remember, we talked about him in the BYU loss a couple of weeks ago. Well, he comes off the bench in the 4th quarter with BYU holding the cover by like 5 points. He comes in off the bench, throws a touchdown pass. It was like a 35-yard touchdown pass, and West Virginia backdoors BYU. Last week, gets the start against TCU, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, tough loss, close loss as a 16-point dog. I think that's the reason why the line hasn't really gone up here. But I think you really should give Houston an awful lot of credit for the win that they had. That was a huge win last week. And they are in good position in the Big 12. Let's take a look at the Big 12 standings now. It's still kind of wide open. Look at that. Not a lot of teams with 1 loss now. Houston, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, BYU. And these teams are going to be playing each other. And you can't count out, because there's still a lot of football left. You can't count out Utah. I'm not even sure I can count out any of these 2-loss teams, to tell you the truth. I still think you're going to get a lot of losses here. Now, of course, Cincinnati and BYU are in a much better position. They could drop 1 game, and what that does is at least it shrinks the playing field and the competitors, because they'd only have a few competitors left, even if they did lose a game. But Houston is one of those teams sitting there with just 1 loss. So they're not going to screw around with West Virginia. I think they're going to be just fine. And I think they'll be able to take care of West Virginia. It's a big spread. The Fox kid has looked good. I get that. But it's a road game. It's a road start. And I'd take Houston here. Yeah, this line, man, what is the case here? Do I have to go check again to find out if Levitt's playing? I'm going to do that. Because why is that line up to 7 now? It was only 4 earlier today. Oh, there it is. Levitt's out again. And they say Jordan Tyson might be out as well. I know we got banged up last week, but how early was that? Hold on, I'm just reading this. Oh, okay. There you go. Yep. That was part of the reason. That was part of the reason why they lost the way that they did last week. Because even though he came back in the game, he did leave early. And one of the key issues too last week, again, you don't get these. This is what drives me nuts about college football with the injuries. At least in the NFL, and look, what happened with Lamar Jackson, we all hate it. The fact is, at least the NFL, 99% of the time, we know if a player is going to play or not. It's going to okay, but we don't know nothing in college. An example: I liked Arizona State big last week, 7-point favorite after the big win against Texas Tech. They're going to be just fine. They're going to move on. What happens? Turns out that the hamstring injury to Tyson that we saw towards the end of the game. Now, he continued to play. But it turns out it was not healthy enough, and he could not play last week. So maybe the best receiver in all of college football, no, he's not playing. Throw in the fact that Levitt, your superstar quarterback, gets hurt, knocked out first quarter, comes back later in the game, leaves again. I mean, this has really just killed Arizona State this year. There was a lot of hope that they were going to have a really big year this year, bigger than last year. But the injuries situation has just killed them. It's not like they've had a rash of injuries on the team, but you have like 3 key players on offense, and 2 of them got hurt at the wrong time. So as far as this one, I don't think these numbers matter. Again, we talked about Jeff Sims in the Utah game, that he does have experience and all that, but he's not a championship type of quarterback. And he proved that when we see him play. Looked a little bit better last week. And maybe the more reps he gets, he'll be better. But Arizona State, 14-6-1, ATS last 21 on the road as a dog. Iowa State, meanwhile, this is why it's tough to take Iowa State at home. They are 41-22 straight up at home under Matt Campbell. 16-6 straight up. 17-5 against the spread following an ATS loss. So it's tough. I don't know. I'm probably going to just pass on this game. Just disgusts me what's going on at Arizona State. Okay. Baylor and UCF. And yeah, Baylor, I was really surprised that they got beat up by Cincinnati early in that game. They made a game of it. I mean, they were down like 28-0, 24-0, 21-0, whatever it was. They get blown out. They come back to get within 1 score, and that was it. And they got blown out again. I don't know about Dave Aranda. I don't know what to think about whether or not he'll be around. There's so many coaches getting fired now, and he's been there for 6 years. And they have not – people thought this was the year. Sawyer Robertson, this was the year. No, just another okay year. That's it. They're not having a bad year, but this was supposed to be a championship Big 12 season year. And they're not even getting to the Big 12 championship game. They're 1-6 against the spread this year, should tell you everything. They're 2-3 straight up, 0-5 against the spread in their last 5. And that's why I'm taking Central Florida in this one. See, Baylor, their season over. It's all about the bowl now. They got nothing to play for, basically. UCF, on the other hand, they've outgained 6 of the 7 opponents they've played this year, including the last 3. We know Scott Frost can coach at Central Florida, and he's doing that again here. Now, they aren't anywhere near the level of where he was when he left the program before, but they're 4-3. They've got bowl hopes, and this is one of those teams. That's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking to improve, go to a bowl, and this is step 1 of the rebuild again. Well, Baylor's the opposite feeling. They're feeling like the season's over. What do we have to play for? So I love the different mindsets, and that's why I'm taking Central Florida. And look, Dave Aranda can save his job, and meaning that if Baylor can go out there and win the type of game this is, because there should be a better team than Central Florida. So they just go in and win this game and prove to everybody that we're not giving up on our coach. That's going to say a lot at will about the program, the state of the program. Now, keep this in mind. These two teams met, if you don't recall, in 2023. And it was Baylor's historic comeback, the most historic comeback ever. They were down 35-7 at the half. I'm not sure if you remember that. I do, because I had Baylor. And I remember thinking the game was over, like you should, when it's 35-7. And I remember, and it wasn't a big game or nothing. It was just a game I had. And then I remember checking back just to see what's going on. And I just couldn't believe it. And they won the game 36-35. So it was just a couple of years ago. Some familiar faces, I'm sure players remember that. I know the fans do. So we'll see what happens here. Again, I just think that Scott Frost got team going in the right direction. So I'm going to take South Florida in this one, Central Florida in this one. Oh, this is a big one. Really, some big games in the Big 12 this week, and this is definitely one of them. Texas Tech, 7-point favorite. Kansas State came up big for us against Kansas. As you know, we had that one. Couldn't understand why the Wildcats were the dog at Kansas. And then they just blew out Kansas in that one in the second half. Bad news for Texas Tech. Their number 2 quarterback, who had been subbing for Baron Morton, Will Hammond, is out for the season. ACL injury in the ridiculous game against Oklahoma State. But Morton is now ready to come back. Is he coming back a little early? We don't know. Maybe. So we got to keep an eye on that. But hey, the timing is interesting. Now he's ready to come back. It's sort of like what's going on with the Vikings. Wentz is out, but now JJ's back. Just so you know, the number 3 quarterback for Texas Tech, now number 2, was a quarterback at Wake Forest previously. Not a talented kid, but hey, he's got a good program now, and he's okay. He's a good number 3, I'll tell you that. But now he's got number 2. Kansas State, remember, they started the season 1-3. This is what we've talked about the last few weeks, why we've jumped on Kansas State recently. And then after the bye, by the way, they were 0-3 ATS during that stretch. Only win versus an FCS team by 3. Go into the bye, come out of the bye, 3-1 straight up, 4-0 against the spread. And the only loss was a 1-point loss on the road to Baylor. Kid kicked a 53-yard field goal as time expired. So that's why we liked them last week. And now, though, they got to step up in competition at Texas Tech. This is a lot different. Kansas State, just so you know, as far as home dog, it's their first home dog roll since the 2022 season. They are 8-0 straight up, 6-1-1 against the spread their last 8 versus the Red Raiders. So they have dominated this series. They're at home as a dog. This is a tough one. It's only Tuesday. I'm not going to be talking about these games anymore until Thursday, when I do the show with Mark and Jim and Andy at 1 o'clock Eastern on the Playbook ATS podcast. And I might need a little extra time. But if I had to pick it right now, I'm leaning towards Texas Tech. They're the better team. They cannot afford to lose this game. We're all in this game just as they are. This is for going to the playoffs. And this means everything. And they're just a better team than Kansas State is this year. I think Kansas State's done a good job to get back to respectability, which is what they should have been all along. They're a good, solid Big 12 team this year. But that's where it stands. I don't think there's more to that. I never did this season. I just thought that once they started to show a different look after the bye that take notice, especially with the competition. Now they step up and play maybe the best team in the conference. So I'll take Texas Tech and give the 7 on Tuesday night. And Arizona, Colorado. In this one, it's 4.5. Check Arizona State's last 2 games. They lose in overtime to 8-0 BYU, and then they lose by 3 at 7-1 Houston on a field goal with 2 seconds left. That's tough to lose, but those are what you call good losses. This is a negative. Head coach Brent Brennan is 0-7 in his career against the spread when his team is off a straight-up loss as the favorite. And Arizona is 0-6 against the spread off a straight-up roll as a favorite. How crazy is that? I've never seen that before. It's like double bad going into this roll. And the other reason I would be a little bit concerned is Colorado under Dion, 6-1 ATS as a home dog, 2-1 in that roll this year. And if you look at their last 2 home games as dogs, they lost by 3 points to an undefeated BYU team, and they upset Iowa State. I know what happened last week, but that's a game. Don't worry about it. It happened last week. Has no bearing on this week's game. Tough one. Really tough, but I think I have to side with Colorado. Say maybe Arizona wins a close one. Maybe we'll go with that one. And then we get the big one of the week, Cincinnati and Utah. Our Bearcats are sitting there as now an 8.5-point road dog. The numbers keep going up. These 2 teams have never met. Cincinnati is 1-1 straight up, 2-0 against the spread as a road dog this year. As a dog this year. They've covered 7 straight away. Actually, I want to make sure this is the right. Let's be sure this is the right. Let's see. Where's Utah? Yeah, I think this is. Let me see. Just got to make sure we got the right numbers here, because this is a good trend. I just want to make sure the numbers are correct. And as I look this information up, one of the things that I think one of the reasons why. Okay, I got it. Wait, no, that's not it, is it? No, that's not it. Hold on one second. Okay, now I got it. One of the reasons why Cincinnati is having a really good season is their quarterback, Sorsby. Sorsby is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. He's a better quarterback than what Utah has. And he's having a really good season. He's one of these dual threat kids, really good college quarterback. They have covered 7 straight on the road versus a team with a winning percentage of 750 or higher coming off a straight up win. 1-0 in that roll this year. Cincinnati, as you can see here, tied with BYU. And in 3 weeks, they will host BYU. So this is one of those things where if you're one of these teams, like I was saying, any of these teams, you're saying, well, if BYU or Cincinnati were to lose in their next game, let's say Cincinnati, they're 8-point dog to lose. So let's say they lose and they got 1 loss, and then they play BYU in a couple of weeks. Well, if BYU beats Cincinnati, well, Cincinnati's got 2 losses as well. So what if the BYU loses in their next game, then the loser, you see what I'm saying? There's still a lot of room left for any different pot, and that includes Utah. So they know their season's not over. Why do you think they just annihilated Colorado after the BYU loss? I mean, they know it's not over. And they did it without Dampier. So last week, they had a freshman quarterback, Bird Ficklin, make his first start. He had 140 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 151 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So they look like they're in good hands coming up if they want to go to Ficklin direction next year. But anyway, Dampier, when he's healthy, he will start. So keep that in mind. And chances are it looks like he is going to start because he came really close to starting last week, but they probably said at Colorado. Anyway, yeah, this is huge. Look, they get this way with the points at Utah because it is a tough place to play at night, especially for teams that have never played there. But I don't think they're getting any respect here, Cincinnati. None. They're getting zero respect with this number. And I just think Satterfield has done a tremendous job this year. And I think this is going to be a really good football game. Of course, I love the fact that I could get 8.5 with Cincinnati and almost 3-1 on the money line. So I don't think that this is going to be, oh, no, it's Utah on the road. We're just going to go. And look, remember when this happened to Arizona State a couple of weeks ago, Leavitt was out. So that's completely different. Okay. Different scenario. So I think this should be a real good game, but I'm definitely siding on Cincinnati's in this one. All right. And there is the Big 12, and that is it for the Power Four. Now, let's talk about the AAC. Remember I said before Tulane would be in a big one. Well, here it is. We're one of their two tough road games, and they're a 4-point now road favorite here. Yeah, look, I don't know what to expect from Texas San Antonio. I really don't. They've had a very strange year, but most of the time when they play at home is when they look more like the team that they're supposed to look. But still, this is not the team from a couple of years ago. It's still a good one, but they were never supposed to be a top AAC team this year. They're just not. They're not where they were a few years ago. I mean, look at this. They get blown out by North Texas a couple of weeks ago, and they had the bye coming in here and needed it to regroup. They lose at Temple as a 6-point road favorite. And they lose at home to Texas State, a team from the Sun Belt. So, it was that North Texas game that they just got annihilated. It's like, where did that come from? But they've had a whole week to stir and get ready for this one. And I just have not been totally impressed with Tulane this year. So I just think that Tulane is vulnerable. This is going to be a tough one, though, because Tulane is more talented. They are a better team than UTSA. I really do believe that. But, I mean, look at Tulane had the close win against East Carolina at home, the close win against Army at home. And they went to South Alabama, Sun Belt team, and won by 2 as a 13-point favorite. This has not been their big wins were Northwestern and Duke. Those were really good wins. Turns out those are 2 decent teams this year, 2 bowl teams from Power 4 conferences. So those were nice wins. But I think they got a loss in them. The thing is, a loss in them that you're not expected. I think that's going to happen. Maybe it's this week, because next week they'll be playing Memphis. So don't forget that. Next week, Tulane takes on Memphis. Okay. Where are we? You know what? I'm going to do something a little bit different here. Because we're running out. We got to 2 hours now, and I barely just started the Power 4. So what I'm going to do is let's do tomorrow. I'm going to find time because, again, I also want to do some predictions. So maybe playoff predictions. So maybe we'll do that tomorrow with the group of 5. Because remember, our schedule tomorrow is we've got the Breeders' Cup show at 4:30. We've got Jim Feist show, which will air starting at 3 o'clock. So that should make things a little bit back to back. Then we've got the 9 o'clock Penn State show, 9:30. So sometime tomorrow night, I'm going to come on and I'm going to do the group of 5. So let's do that. I'm going to wrap up with the NFL though. So I'm going to hold off on the group of 5 tomorrow. I have a little bit more information. I was just looking at it and I was like, you know what? I want to be a little bit more informative on some of this stuff, and we'll do that tomorrow. So that'll be, hey, we'll be back to Proline Picks Wednesdays tomorrow, part 2 of Proline Picks Tuesdays. But that's our college football for now. So let's turn our attention then to NFL. All right. So here we go. All right. Time to talk NFL. And we've got the Thursday game this week being Baltimore-Miami. And it looks like Lamar Jackson is going to play. At least that's what we hear now. And is it possible at 1-5 that the Baltimore Ravens will end up as the NFL and AFC North champs when the season's over? Because their schedule is not that difficult in the next 5 or 6 weeks. So that is very much possible. Both teams only have 2 wins, but we know who the better team is because, hey, Baltimore's a 7-point road team. No, but there's nothing to question with that. You know, Baltimore's still a potential playoff team, and Miami's not. I think that this is a tougher game, though, because of Miami's win last week. I think that was important. Yeah, if Miami lost that game, you got the trade deadline coming up. You got to keep that in mind. There's going to be a lot of players distracted on some teams that are not going to the playoffs. So Bradley Chubb is a guy that definitely you would think is not going to be on the Dolphins. Too many teams out there looking for pass rushers that Bradley Chubb will be a Dolphin. That's not going to happen. I mean, I think everybody would be shocked if he is. So this might be his last game with the Dolphins, his last chance to show everybody, and then he can go on a playoff team. So he might be pumped up for this one for sure. Anyway, Baltimore 0-2 straight up and against the spread as a road favorite this year. Miami has covered their only home dog roll. Remember, that was that Charger loss, the real close loss at the end. And Miami has proven this year from time to time, sort of like the Jets, as bad as they both are, they've both proven from time to time they can hang with good teams. And I think they're going to hang. You know, I think they will. I think this is going to be, especially because Lamar hasn't played in a while. So I think, you know, he should be a little bit off sync with his team. And I'm still not all bought in that the defense is fixed. So I'm not on top of that, that's for sure. But I can see Miami hanging in there. I really can. So I might take the points in this one. I probably won't even take the game because I'm not, you know, the Dolphins. But if I did, I would take the Dolphins. I would go that route. I don't know about the money line. I don't know. You see, Dolphins had the upset last week, and it's really tough when you're a losing team in the NFL or college. It's very tough to win back-to-back games as upsets. Usually, when you do that, it's because you really shouldn't be a losing team. You know, you're better than that. I don't know if that's Miami, though. You know, most of us thought when the season began, they'd be 2-6. All right. So in this one, this is going to be tough for JJ McCarthy. So it's his team now. That's it. And we knew that last week. And I don't know what's going on there in Minnesota with the injuries, because they've had some really weird injury situations going on there. You know, Wentz probably shouldn't have even played last week. We saw how bad he looked against the Eagles, and it was injury related. And then he played again on a short week. You know, we all thought it was possible they were going to go with the rookie. That's how bad things were. But no, they played him, and then he screwed up his shoulder. He's out for the year. It's like, and they've had this go on now for quite a bit this year with a bunch of other players. So it's been a very strange injury year for Minnesota, but they get McCarthy back, and coincident, because it is a coincidence, he's starting in his return in the state of Michigan. So we'll see what happens there. But there is some good news for the Vikings on the injury front. It looks like Darisaw, the left tackle, and even the right tackle, O'Neal, who were banged up the last few weeks, should play. Now, this is important. When J.J. McCarthy made his first couple of starts this year, remember, he did not have his best offensive lineman, Darisaw, left tackle, and he did not have Addison, the number 2 receiver on this team. Really is the second best skill position player on the team. So he didn't have his best lineman and his second best receiver. So he gets them back. So they are actually going to be as healthy as they've been in a while coming off the bye. That was really important. Now, they also have something good going for them in this particular trend. The Vikings have covered 8 straight as dogs of 5 or more after they allow 35 or more. So that's a good spot for Minnesota. Detroit, meanwhile, well, they have good trends as usual everywhere. 19-2 against the spread off a double-digit spread win. And they're 2-0 in that roll already this year. They're on a 3-game winning streak at home this year. All 3 games, straight up ATS wins. And in the series with Minnesota, they are 6-3 straight up, 9-0 against the spread in the last 9 meetings, including 5-0 straight up and against the spread in their last 5. So a lot here says Detroit. You do have to keep an eye on their secondary. Arnold, the corner, whether he's going to practice a little bit. Will he play? Joseph, the other key defensive back. Keep an eye on whether he plays. So that would be a big boost for JJ if he could play this game and have some backups in the secondary with Jefferson and Addison. I think we'll learn a lot about JJ McCarthy in this one if that were to be the case. I don't know. This to me, this is like smelling Detroit is the way to go. I mean, they're such a good team and really good team to wager on. You got the Vikings who went into it wasn't a bye. It was like a mini break into the Thursday game. So they went into a little break, the extra few days, and they got a little bit healthier, but they went into it just feeling really dejected about the way they played the last few weeks. You know, they had that trip from overseas and, you know, that had some ugly moments. And yeah, they really can change their entire season if they can win this game. Division game, get to 500, got the young quarterback, getting the win in Michigan. I don't know. I tend to see more that it's going to take a little bit of time for JJ to get going, and just asking way too much of him in this situation with this team. Detroit, they are coming off a bye after their victory. After their win a couple weeks ago against Tampa Bay. Next up, Chargers. And the Chargers are just 1-2 straight up and against the spread as a road favorite this year. They're now 5-3 after the win over Minnesota. Same game, same situation we talked about on Thursday of last week. And these two teams have actually played each other the last 3 years. The home team winning all 3, interesting enough. Tennessee, though, 0-3 straight up and against the spread at home this year by a 35-17 margin. So 10, that's really not that much, or 9.5 now, really not that much. Get this. Now that they're home this week, Tennessee will not be going away until December 7th. How about that? They're going to be at home for the next 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Yeah, it's a big number, but I'm just not seeing anything out of this Tennessee team. There's just, I mean, they got an interim coach. Yeah, he can win the job, but that ain't happening. They just traded McCreary to the Rams. They're going to sell off as much as they can. Chargers had a really important win, and they did get healthier. So we're going to expect Alt playing, Becton playing. Who else is back for them? Derwin James should be okay. They still have a few players. Their corners out still. The running back still out. But I think the Chargers are the play here. And I think the Patriots are the play. Now, you got to keep an eye, though, on Penix. That's the big deal. We don't know about Penix. We don't know about Drake London. We don't know about Bates, Harrison, Jalen Walker. But there are signs that they could be getting all of these guys back. Okay? The latest basically is that it's too early in the week, but it is possible that all of these guys play and they get them all back, including Penix. So we got to keep an eye on that. Also keep an eye on the tackle position because that killed them last week against the Dolphins. I mean, they're down to their third string tackle, and Storm Norton, who was the backup, who came in and has at least done a decent job as a backup. Not sure if he's going to play again. So that's something to keep an eye on too for Atlanta. They've lost their last two by a 54-20 margin. They're 2-9 against the spread as non-conference dogs, even though they won this year's matchup so far against Buffalo. Patriots have won 5 straight up and against the spread. And remember last week when they were 4-0 straight up and against the spread, I just said, you just can't stand in their way. Just keep riding them. And that's the kind of way I feel. Just keep riding them. Atlanta, though, could be a dangerous dog if they get a lot of these players back from injury. So keep an eye on that. Green Bay and Carolina. Bryce Young, it's looking iffy, sort of like Penix. Maybe he returns, maybe he doesn't. I would lean towards he does, but check this out. Bryce Young is 0-11 straight up, 3-7-1 against the spread when he plays winning teams. Wow, never beaten a winning team yet. Carolina 0-3 straight up, 1-2 against the spread as a road dog this year. Green Bay 3-0 straight up, 2-1 against the spread as a home favorite this year. Packers had a big, comfortable win that I didn't expect. A lot of people didn't. Packers were not in that good position going into that Pittsburgh game as a road favorite, but comfortably ran away after they were down early in the first half. So that was a nice win for them. They got Christian Watson back, which really helps. And they are ready next week to play the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. So is this a sandwich game between two big primetime games? Or is this a team that just realizes, hey, we haven't played our best football lately, but we played a good, after we got off to a slow start, ended up playing a good game last week. Let's keep that going. We've got an Eagle team coming up next week. We've got to keep that going. I tend to think more along the lines of that. And I probably would take Green Bay and minus the 12. I'm also taking the Colts minus the 3. You got to show respect to the Colts at this point in the season. They've answered every call, and the line is not big enough to worry. Look, the Steelers, they really had Green Bay. Again, Green Bay had been tough, not playing particularly well in that spot this year, and they had them on the ropes early, and they could not finish it. And that shows you something. Losing to the Bengals the week before, they're just the defense has completely let them down this year. It's very surprising. The Steelers have played the Colts 5 times in the last 6 years, believe it or not, winning 3 out of the 5. The Colts, meanwhile, won by 3 last year. They did beat them out of 2 out of the 5, but one of them was last year when the Colts beat them as a 2-point road favorite. Meanwhile, the Steelers were a 2-point road favorite. Meanwhile, the Steelers are in really good shape with this trend. 11-0-1 against the spread at home after they allow 35 or more. So when they have one of those games, they respond at home at least. I don't know. I can't trust Pittsburgh right now. Why would I? And I could trust Indianapolis. There's been nothing at all this year where Indianapolis has played a bad game and has basically let anybody down. So until that happens, it's not 10, 7, 12, it's 3. So I would jump all over the Colts. Here's a good one. Houston. Can they back up their huge win against San Francisco? As we mentioned last week, there's a huge homestand for them. San Francisco last week, Denver this week, Jacksonville next week. They're just one game now below 500. So the big win over the Niners last week. And they get a Denver team that has won 5 straight games. So this is going to be really stepping up for Houston. And this is really, I think, where we find out if Houston's legit or not. And it looks like they're going to get Nico Collins back. Remember, they got the win last week against San Francisco without Collins and Kirk, without their top 2 wide receivers. But that's where those wide receiver draft picks came in handy, Higgins and Knoll. So they had really big games, very, contributed to everything. The defense is still playing well. They're healthy on that side of the ball. Denver, bad break. It looks like Patrick Surtain could be heading to injured reserve. He has a pectoral issue. We saw it was during the game last week against Dallas. He got hurt, left the game, and he came back. See, when that happens and then the guy maybe goes on IR, I got to question that. I mean, you get the whole season to think about here. Was it really necessary to bring him in? But whatever the case may be, it looks like Surtain is going to miss some time for Denver. And we'll see that look, he is the defensive player of the year. That's how important Patrick Surtain is. And Nico Collins, if he returns, he doesn't have to worry about Patrick Surtain. That is a major break for Houston. 49ers Giants. Yeah, I was surprised the line was only 2.5 here. I got to take the Niners in this one. It looks like Brock Purdy is ready to return. Maybe good timing too, because Mac Jones hasn't exactly been feeling good lately. He's got a bruised knee. The Niners have won both of their games as a road favorite this year, straight up ATS. The Giants have won 2 out of 3 this year as a home dog, though. And the big news, though, is Scatterboo being out for the year. Another awful break for the Giants. At least as a fan, you look forward to next year and you go, I just can't wait till the season starts next year. We've got a young quarterback that we're developing. We've got Scatterboo at running back and Neighbors at receiver. You really have got to think about next year. But this is all about Jackson Dart, continue his development. That's very important. I don't know. I know the Niners have injuries. I get that. But I just don't understand why it's only 2.5. There's still talent on that team. There's still a good coach team. The Houston loss, I think that was inevitable in a way. Remember when they lost Warner, I remember hearing somebody talk about somewhere on national TV about, this young linebacker did a really good job against who did they beat last week? Atlanta. And look at the way they're able to bring in guys for the injured guys, and it shows a lot about the depth on the team and the players and all that. And but that was one game, and you can't get too crazy about one game. Yes, definitely you can do that in one game. But now it's not just the quarterback, it's every position. You got film on the guy. You got film on these players. And so everybody has film now on these players, including this linebacker. Anyway, I'm not saying I'm blaming him for the loss. Just saying that, it will, though, catch up to you. And it really did. The Niners just got, it was like they were really due for the loss. but I don't see them losing back-to-back. I think they had their loss. They had the wake-up call. Like they had this easy schedule. Everybody knew beginning of the season, they had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. They got to take advantage of it. Okay, next up. And again, getting Brock Purdy back, which I believe they're going to get back, that'll really be a big boost. Now, here's a line that I do not understand. See, all of a sudden, the Bengals lose one game to a winless team. And again, what if the Jets were 1-6, 1-7 going into the game? Would there be this much of a reaction to it? I don't think so. I think it's, you lose to the winless Jets. They still scored 38 points. They scored over 30 points the week of. What is that telling you? That they could still they could still score. Now, yes, the defense is going to give up, but who are they playing? Do you trust Caleb Williams that he's going to go out there and he's not going to make a stupid mistake? What's going to more than likely happen? I tell you what, I'm surprised the total is only 52. Why is the total 52? What is it? The Bears are not a great defensive team, and they got most of their secondary out. They got to try to cover Chase and Higgins with the banged-up secondary. On top of that, this is the first time the Bears have been a road favorite since 2021. I don't know why they're the road favorite. Did they show anything in the Baltimore game? They didn't have to worry about Lamar Jackson, and he still lost. They're 0-10 against the spread when they take on an opponent coming off a loss as a favorite. Cincinnati, meanwhile, you do have to keep an eye on Flacco and Hendrickson. Now, we know Hendrickson's worth a point or two because he's that good of a player on defense, and they sorely missed him last week. If Hendrickson plays against the Jets, they probably win because the Jets needed everything in that game to come back, and they just barely did. I think Hendrickson would have been a difference. So you got to no question, keep an eye on that. But I don't see why the Bears should be favored here. I'm sorry. I just don't. If Flacco doesn't play, then I'd be a little bit worried. And I could see why the Bears would be favored. But Browning, I don't know what happened to Browning. Browning was a very serviceable backup a couple of years ago when he played for Burrow. Very serviceable. And this year, I don't know what happened to him. So can he come back and look more like the kid that was here a couple of years ago? Well, it's possible. But you need Flacco. I'm only talking about for this game. I'm not talking about the rest of the season. I'm just saying if they can get Flacco back, because if you lose this game now going to the bye, then it's over. So they really got to get Flacco in there. Hendrickson, I don't know. We'll see. Because he didn't look very good coming off the field last week. Tyler Shuck gets the start. First start in the Ram game. The line is now up to 14. But the Rams have not been good after the bye. The last 4 years, they've dropped the point spread in all 4. These two teams have played each other 3 times in the last 3 years, with the favorite covering all 3, winning all 3. As I said with the Tennessee game, Roger McCreary has been shipped to the Rams, boost up their secondary. And this is a game the Rams would like to get over pretty soon because their next 3 games, San Francisco on the road, Seattle, Tampa Bay at home. It really gets tough. So they don't even want to have anything to do with the Saints. You just get rid of this bad team. And it does look like Puka Nacua could come back. I tell you right now, if Puka Nacua comes back, I think the Saints might be toast, especially the rookies' first start, Rams. We know that they can play defense. So plus it's a road game. Maybe not a good spot for the young quarterback, but he definitely deserves the opportunity to play, see what he's made of. Jacksonville and the Raiders and the Jags are a 3-point road favorite here. Haven't been playing good before the bye, but they still can say, hey, wait a second. Look, we're 4-3. Got the rest of the season ahead of us. Keep an eye on the Devin Lloyd injury. I haven't heard anything yet regarding whether he's going to return this week, but it's been a few weeks. They really need him. He's having a monster season. First time Cohen is a road favorite as a head coach. That's interesting. And check this out. This works for the Raiders and against the Jags. The Jags are 1-10 against the spread when they take on an opponent coming off a bye. The Raiders are 4-0-1 against the spread when they take on an opponent coming off a bye. Both teams are coming off byes. Raiders are the better team in that trend there. Raiders will be at Denver on Thursday night. Jags will be at Houston in a really big game for both teams next week. Yeah, look, I think Jacksonville's the way to go. I think that they showed enough with that Kansas City win, the start that they got off to, that this is a good time for the bye to kind of regroup, get your head back in the right direction. And they've been a better team than the Raiders this year. So I would side with the Jags in this one. This line has gone up to 2.5 from 1. I didn't even think the Chiefs should be favored. And the only reason I think they are, or the main reason I think they are, is, the Bills have still had these injury issues on defense. Ed Oliver now is out for the year, it looks like. Milano still hasn't played in a while. He might be back. We'll keep an eye on that. But the Bills are 3-0, straight up and against the spread as a home dog. And I think this goes back to 2021, 2020. You know when it was snapped, though, it was 2020. That was the last time they lost the game as a home dog. And it was to the Kansas City Chiefs. Speaking of the Chiefs and the Bills, I think we all know this by now. The Chiefs are 4-0, straight up and against the spread versus the Bills in the postseason. The Bills are 4-1 straight up and against the spread in the regular season versus the Chiefs, including 4-0 in the last 4. And the Bills were a dog in 3 of them. I know the Chiefs are playing their best football. I get that, but I think the Bills they were able to right the ship against Carolina. Remember last week we had them as our top pick of the week, and they came through for us. Cruised in the second half, and I think that was their wake-up call. I really do. I know they're going to miss Oliver, but they've got the trade deadline at least. So I think the Bills are going to be active. They have to be. I think they got to get a receiver, and they got to get a couple players on defense. They've got to be active. Now the question is, I don't know if they got cap space. Now I don't know if they can do a trade, give out a player, give in a player, same money. I don't know. But they got to figure a way to improve this team, especially with Oliver being out. That is a big blow. Look, I get why the Chiefs are the hot team, the money team, and they're beating everybody, and they're covering and all that. But history tells us this is the Bills. Take them. Home dog. Beat the Chiefs in the regular season. You know what would be good for the Bills is probably to lose this game. And you know why? Because these two teams play in the playoffs. And maybe that's exactly what the Bills need to do. Switch the script. And finally, the primetime games. Seattle's a 3-point favorite coming off the bye at Washington. Daniels looking like he probably returns this week, but you got to keep an eye on that. The Commanders have covered 8 straight as a home dog of 3 or less versus an opponent with a win percentage of 600 or better. So this has been a really good spot for Washington. But they're 1-4 straight up and against the spread as a dog so far this year. Their only win was that win against the Chargers. Seattle 2-0 straight up and against the spread as a road favorite. But they're 1-5 ATS with rest in the last 6 years. Does look like, though, they're getting their secondary healthy. Woolen, Witherspoon, Love. All 3 looking good to return. Keep an eye on that, though. It's early in the week. That would be big, especially with Daniels maybe coming back. As far as the game is concerned, yeah, this is a tough one because Washington's good in this spot. And if Daniels plays Your backs are against the wall. They're 3-5. It's a huge game for them. I'd probably side with Washington. It's tough for me to do that because I've been a big Seattle guy, as you know. Remember the beginning of the season? I don't know if you recall, but my favorite prop bet of the preseason was take the Rams to finish in first and Seattle second. I forget what the odds were at the time. I know we probably have it written down somewhere. And that's actually looking pretty good right now, even though, hey, it could be Seattle first, Rams second. But I don't think there's no doubt in my mind that Seattle and the Rams, but definitely Seattle, because most people know the Rams. Seattle's a playoff team. Their defense is really good, and they've been playing really good football with a banged-up secondary. They get that secondary going. It's one of the best defenses in the NFL. And then finally, Dallas and Arizona, two line. Looks like Kyler Murray is going to return for Arizona. And they've lost 5 straight by a total of 13 points. Terrible. 3-2 against the spread during that stretch. And they've outgained their last 3 opponents as well. Cowboys got a bye next week. And then they go play on Monday Night Football again. 5 of their next 7 games are on national TV, primetime games, including the Thanksgiving Day game. 5 out of the next 8, 5 of the next 8. That's America's team. I think the Cowboys are the play here, even though Arizona, they got their backs against the wall a little bit more. But I think they're getting a little bit too used to losing. Now maybe the Kyler Murray return will get them going. I think that's a definite possibility. But again, the Cowboys have played really tough at home, especially against teams that you would think that they should be able to beat. They've been able to do that. They even almost beat the Packers at home. So this should be a good spot for the Cowboys, but Arizona could be a very dangerous team if Kyler Murray returns. All right, and that's going to wrap it up. So again, sorry for the curveball, but I just noticed that I kind of felt that I'd have a lot more information. I was looking at my notes and I was like, I could probably do a lot more than that. And I want to do that. Again, it's only group of 5, but there's a lot of good stuff, as always, to talk about with the group of 5. And I will do that tomorrow for sure. So I'll be back on the air tomorrow, regular time slot maybe. Maybe we'll do it again around 7 o'clock or something like that. Obviously, a much shorter, condensed spot. And I'm also going to really hope to put together as well, maybe our predictions for the playoffs. So I'm going to try to do that. See if I can throw that in there. Maybe we'll do that. Well, I don't know, beginning or the end of the show, but I'd like to do that. Now that we're doing a bonus second show this week for the first time, and I know we're going to do that. That'll give me a good excuse to put that together. It should be some fun. Okay, so thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, of course. All that stuff, very important, helps us grow as a channel. You can also take a look at the $ in the message board, the text message board, and that's where you can text us your questions. You can also donate to the show. All of that stuff is appreciated as we continue to grow here and provide you with as much free content as we possibly can. Stay tuned tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern, the Jim Feist Handicapping Show, 4:30 Eastern, our Breeders' Cup special. 4 races we're going to handicap. I'll be on the air, like I said, 7 o'clock hopefully tomorrow night. And then 9:30 tomorrow night is our Penn State show as the boys preview the big game coming up. It's always a big game, no matter how good or bad your team is when you take on Ohio State. So enjoy the night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow.